how fast did the regular season go for you?
You know, in some ways, it really went fast. It did. I'm not sure necessarily why. Maybe because we were so busy, you know, going from one game to the next, especially with as many lineups and different things that we went through. But, you know, also we had a lot of success. You know, the season moves faster when you're able to win 27 games out of 31. And, you know, I think the other, you know, thing that we're really proud of when you reflect back on this season, or if you wonder why it went smooth on in terms of how fast it went, is, you know, our 4 losses. And if you look at the 4 that we had when we lost to Butler in Las Vegas, and that was, I think, without Alonzo, and not everybody recognized how really good of a team, really good team that Butler had. And we felt it when we played them and watched them, because they have a great blend of experience. And I think they're going to have a high tournament seed. Obviously, Gonzaga speaks for itself at Oregon, you know, UCLA at home. So, you know, we lost to some really quality teams, and each game represented different challenges. But in addition to our 27 wins, you know, you look at those types of losses as opportunities to learn and grow, which we certainly have. But we lost to some really quality teams in addition to the success that we had.
You mentioned a couple weeks ago that with Alonzo coming back, you've had to shuffle the lineup a little bit. We're trying some new things. Is everything set in your opinion now, or are you still progressing and maybe shuffling things in the Pac-12 tournament?
No, I think we pretty much know who we are at this point. I don't know if we've hit on all cylinders necessarily, especially offensively. You know, Lowry has played some excellent basketball, and, you know, just watching him against ASU, he played a really good game against ASU. But, you know, his strength that everybody saw from day one here has temporarily left him. And, you know, he's been in, you know, I don't know if you want to call it a slump, but he hasn't shot the ball particularly well over the last month. But if you think about that, that coincides in some ways with Alonzo returning. I don't believe that's why he's in a slump. But we haven't really seen our team offensively hitting on all cylinders with, I think, the real firepower that we have. And, you know, hopefully we're working, hopefully we can see it in March, but we're working to bring that out. And I think as Lowry settles in with his ability to make shots and do some of the things that he's done really well over the last month, with maybe our team's chemistry where it is, which I think is in a good place. Alonzo playing very good basketball, and that's the best you're going to see with Arizona. That would be like UCLA when we played them at Pauley Pavilion. That was when you watched us offensively. We had maybe the best overall flow that we had all year.
Do you look at this week as you know, these seems like you guys, UCLA and Oregon, are comparable resumes, and maybe the team who wins it and stays in the West could get a number 1, number 2. Do you look at it that way, or what do you think?
I don't, just because we can't control it. You know, I think our season speaks for itself, as does theirs. You know, we're entering Las Vegas to really show up and compete and play. You know, that first matchup doesn't make you feel good. You know, playing Colorado or Washington State. We haven't played Colorado in a long, long time in terms of this season, because we've only played them at home, and we played Utah and Colorado, it seems like a year ago. But, you know, I think for us it's no bigger than that, just making sure that we're ready coming on the heels of Saturday, using that in a very positive way with our confidence, and going into Las Vegas playing our best basketball with no pressure on us. I mean, you know, we're trying to win every game, but there's a lot that's going to happen this week, and if it happens to be really good for us, great. If it doesn't, I think we all recognize that next week is big, and we're going to use this week either way as a positive moving into the NCAA tournament.
Do you look at it like, or does it, at this point, does it matter at all whether you could stay in the West versus another region, and, you know, and that could be the difference maybe this week, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the more we win, the better for us. So let's look at it that way. But part of when you talk about what region you're in, you're presuming that we're going to get past the first and second round. And, man, that's hard to get to the Sweet 16. It's not easy to get to a Sweet 16, whether you're a 1 seed or 6 seed, 4, it doesn't matter. That in and of itself makes you feel really good, because the tournament shrinks from 68 teams to 16. So you're moving to the second weekend. So, first of all, I think that it's about us being the most ready this week, and then having a chance to be a team that can play into the second weekend. And then wherever we're at, we're going to play excellent teams. It's a neutral court. We've been in the West where we've been in the Elite Eight and didn't get to the Final Four. I know the history of the tournament at Arizona. Teams of the past have gone to different locations and made it to the Final Four. So it's so much more about playing your best and hopefully having a matchup that is good for you. All teams have certain styles that they're going to be more comfortable against. Maybe, teams that you're not as comfortable against. I watched Wichita State yesterday, and they, to me, look like a team that's every bit as good as they were last year, maybe better. If you put them in the first four in, good luck. Good luck. I mean, they're right now, they're a Final Four team, in my opinion. They have experience, a great coach, a program that's been there and done that. They are physical, tough, and, they're one of those teams, and there's so many out there that if they're in your bracket, it's like you're playing a Sweet 16 team in game one. So, you want to get matchups that sometimes are favorable. I don't know which teams are ones you feel that way if you match up with, but the tournament has a lot of parity. That's obvious.
At this point, could you change Lowry's weekly shooting preparation, or is that off limits?
No, it's off limits just because I don't look at his shot as being flawed. And the reason why I say that is it's like Parker. If you watch them every day in practice, not just in drills, and you see a lot of repetitions in drills, in extra shooting, whether it be pre-practice, after practice, or earlier or later in the day, but also in practice in game action. You see that sometimes guys go through different confidence points, but there's nothing wrong with Lowry's shot. If there's one thing that I think he's going through, he's played a style that's been very face-up oriented, very up-tempo. He's comfortable playing that style. That's a 24-second shot clock, international FIBA basketball, and there's a lot of similarities between FIBA and the NBA. College basketball, because the shot clock isn't at 24, it's a more physical game around the basket, and zone defense is much more prevalent, as is different types of man-to-man. That what Lowry has done an incredible job of is he has learned to utilize his size, offensive rebounding, posting up, scoring closer to the basket, getting fouled, more in the last 6 weeks than he did earlier in the year. But it's a blend now of physical around the basket, posting up smaller players as teams try to take away his three-point shot. And then now balancing that with taking the open three-point shot, feeling comfortable in the three-point shot. So if there's one thing that might be different in describing his game is, I don't know if he's ever played this game with as much of a blend as he has going on with what he's doing on offense. And it could take you maybe out of your rhythm a little bit, but watching the ASU game, I think he had 3 or 4 really good looks, and he's going to make those. We're working with him, extra. But there's also a fine line because he pushes himself tremendously hard, so you want to make sure that he gets rest as well. But hey, we're gonna bet on him 100 times in a row because of what we see every day. And if you look at his percentage after 31 games, if you would say Lowry was going to shoot 42% from the three-point line at the beginning of the year, I mean, any coach would sign up for that. It's just he was at such a high level shooting that I don't know if he could have kept it up, even if he was red hot right now. So maybe his percentage is more about where it should be than comparing, early in the year to late in the year. Because as much as you can focus on him not shooting the basketball well over the last 4 or 5 weeks, I can flip it and make the argument that think about how torrid of a pace he was on for 5 or 6 weeks, maybe prior to that. I mean, he was shooting almost 60% from 3 at one point. So he's settling in, and as long as he takes good threes, he's going to make them.
It's award season, and Lowry, third-team All-American by Sporting News, and your name is brought up for Coach of the Year. Bleacher Report said that you are the Coach of the Year. How would you compare this season, adversity-wise, and the work that you've had to do to other ones you've had here?
Well, this is by far the proudest that I have been of our coaching staff and our team since I've been at Arizona, just because of what you said. When it's all over, it's early March, we're in the catbird seat, so to speak, in terms of 27-4 Pac-12 champs. But there was just too many times from October on that, we didn't know our outcome. We didn't really know our future. And we got hit with a lot of different things that could have derailed us, but it didn't. And, if I give my honest answer on why, it's because of the incredible foundation and support that we have here at Arizona. From Greg Byrne and his athletic department, and I know Greg has left us, and we're thrilled to have Dave, but he put us in a great position to be successful in a lot of ways. And the support, that Mike Ketchum gives us as our sport administrator, the weekly, the daily interaction that we have from all the way back to the beginning of the school year, handling all these situations. To our managers that don't get enough credit, to strength and conditioning and trainer. There are a lot of trainers that don't have a relationship with the strength coach and vice versa. And there's a disconnect between the coaching staff and the trainer and the strength coach. That's the furthest thing from the truth here. Those guys are assistant coaches here at Arizona, Justin Kokoski and Chris Rounds. And if you think about all of the situations that they've had to handle, a part of why we didn't get derailed is because of how great they are. And 3 assistant coaches, they build our team through their recruiting efforts, through scouting and coaching. And, the experience that we have with those 3 guys, the continuity that we have. And then when you go to our actual team, highly recruited freshmen bring a lot of unnecessary drama. It's just the way of the world in college basketball. They've brought a lot of talent with very, very little drama. Kobe, Raleigh, and Lowry. And if you consider Keanu as part of that class, those guys have gotten the job done. And we have one senior on this year's team, and he deserves a lot of credit. And I've given him a lot of credit, but Kadeem Allen embodies all of the qualities that you would want as a coach to lead your team. And he's done it through example, not what he says, but what he does. So throwing all of that in, and then finally, if you look at our fans and the support we have in McHale on home games and how we hear that U of A chant on the road, it's just the support allows us to move through some of this adversity. And we have to keep that. We can lose it from one season to the next, but that's why, we're where we're at, and hopefully it kind of, I think, elevates us to having a great March. I mean, this week, next week, the week after, because, a great season can come to a conclusion very quickly, but why we're all being talked about with the accolades, it's not one person or one group. It's just an entirety, from an athletic department on down, the great support that we've had. That's why we have been able to maintain the success from start to finish, with so many different times where we could have gone south.
Seems like you have a good chance for the Pac-12 Coach of the Year, too. I was just curious, since you can't vote for yourself, who did you vote for?
I can't give that to you, Bruce. There's just too many good coaches. 2 coaches that I don't know if they'll get the Coach of the Year, but Larry Kostoviak, he started this season without 2 of his best players. He incorporated those 2 players in the Pac-12. He had a tough loss at Oregon State, bounced back. I think right now going into the Pac-12 tournament, they're playing as well as anybody. I look at their field goal percentage offense. His team shot over 50% on the season. I mean, that's really a hard stat to ignore. Andy Enfield, looking at how he did this year. Think about the players that both of those coaches lost from a year ago. USC lost as much talent as anybody, and then Benny Boatwright didn't play with his team for a long time, and yet you look at the season they've had. He could be in the NCAA tournament, should be. So those are just two coaches that you can make a case did a great job in our conference.
Several schools of thought on those coaching awards. Which one do you like best? The one where you have good players, you have a good season, go 30-1 or whatever. The one where you have a lot of adversity and do better, or team was supposed to be 16th in the Pac-12 and ended up third. Which one do you like best?
Right. That's why you can't get too caught up in the coach of the year, because sometimes the coach who wins the coach of the year has the most talent. And, you know, John Calipari, Kentucky, you know, he doesn't get enough credit for being able to handle a total transformation from one season to the next and handling all that goes with so many high expectation freshmen. You know, everybody thinks that's easy. That's very hard. And, you know, at Kentucky, you know, you have to win every game. You're supposed to win the national championship. So, you know, that's an example of a coach doing a great job with great talent, but with that comes its own subset of problems. I gave you two examples of coaches maybe that have great situations this season. I should say tough situations, but they did an incredible job. So I think it's both, you know, Dana Altman and Steve Alford. I mean, Steve a year ago wasn't in the tournament, and you think about what a great season he's had. Dana Altman, you get bored talking about him because he does it every single year. He's a great coach. So there's a lot of deserving coaches. You know, from a national coaching perspective, you know, my brother, he had a player pass away. I mean, imagine how hard that is. And not only did this young man pass away, but he was a 7-foot center who, in the Atlantic 10 Conference, you don't get very, very often. But yet he had to deal with all of that and coach his team. And then, you know, he went through a lot of injuries. I look at the job he's done. James Whitford at Ball State, back-to-back 20-win seasons. He inherited a program that won 5 games. So there's all over college basketball a lot of great coaches and jobs and that people do. And I'm sure in each of their camps they feel they've done a great job.
The Pac-12 hasn't put out their awards yet, but what do you think your players might be on there? What do you feel? Which guys are deserving? And you know, I think you talked about Jordan Bell as Defensive Player of the Year maybe last week. I didn't know if you felt Kadeem had a shot at that or.
You know, I would expect Kadeem to be on the all-defensive team. There are too many coaches that understand his value to our team. That he's an obvious choice, and I'd be really surprised if he wasn't on the all-defensive team. We have a lot of different players. You know, Lowry, the all-freshman team. You know, we have an opportunity maybe to get more than one on there in a year, which that would be a great accomplishment because there's so many talented freshmen. But we will see. The Pac-12 speaks for itself. I know that March Madness dictates, you know, the success of each conference. A year ago, we had 7 teams in, but we didn't do well in postseason other than Oregon, and we probably didn't get enough credit for the great conference we had a year ago. Hopefully this year will be different.
So the tournament this week, you mentioned Colorado, of course, but do you see it playing out like it's mostly like the seedings would indicate, or do you think it could be some surprises coming up?
There's always surprises, especially with what's at stake. We have a couple of teams that in these early rounds are playing for the NCAA tournament. And, you know, all of us are playing for high seeds. And whoever wins the Pac-12 tournament, you know, it's a great accomplishment. So I think you'll see an incredible environment in Las Vegas. I'm really excited to go to the new arena. I mean, it's a world-class facility. It's brand new. There aren't many conference tournaments that have that as the setting, especially in a city like Las Vegas that loves college basketball. So I know it should be a great atmosphere.
Have you been in there?
No. I've only driven by it. I've heard nothing but great things about it, though.
Well, there's a theory that Oregon has it easier because they don't have to play both you and UCLA. They'll probably only have to play one, if any. But do you see it that way, or because of what you're saying about Utah, could that be just as tough to be in?
Yeah, it's tough. It's like the NCAA tournament. It's really hard to read into. You have an easier road. A lot of it is going to depend on how well all of us play. You know, you could be a really good team and just not play well on that particular neutral court setting, and obviously that's what fuels March Madness. That's why it's so fun to follow as a fan, and it's difficult, you know, as a coach just to judge yourself on that last game because you just played 31. Isn't 31 every bit as important as one? But I think all of us understand winning championships in March and competing in March and how far you go is the name of the game. So with that, you know, not only does the favorite think that way, but so does the underdog. And a team like Utah, they're playing really well. They have a lot at stake. They secured that first round bye. I'm sure on their end they're really excited about having their opportunity. So I don't think any of us have it easier than anyone else. You know, if we play Colorado, it's really unique because they're 8-3 in their last 11 Pac-12 games, and they have as much experience and size. They have a player, White. It's been a long time since we played him, but I know he's an all Pac-12 player, a senior. So, you know, Tad is a really good coach. So, you know, I'll use them as an example, not because I think they're going to win, but that's not an easy game for whoever plays them, both Washington State and us.
Well, I was wondering that. I don't know how much you've watched of either of those two teams, but what is the difference between Colorado now versus when you saw them in January?
They're obviously playing a lot better now. When we played them, it was the beginning of their losing streak. We're going to play them. If we play them again, it would be a team that would go 9-3 in their last 12. I'd say they're playing well.
Do you think it's sustainable that 3 teams can keep their hold at the top of the league like you 3 did this year?
Meaning the same 3 each year,
I mean,
moving forward?
long-term.
Yes, I do. It's more difficult now because we lose 40% of our roster. I think if you look at Oregon, UCLA, and Arizona, and you project out maybe a year from now what our rosters will look like, you're going to see a lot of change. So with that, it comes to your consistency recruiting in addition to the stability that you have. But all of us, if you really look closely, it's not the newcomers. It's in addition to the newcomers who returns. And, you know, having Alonzo, Duson, Parker, Kadeem is every bit as pivotal towards our success and our success in March as it is how well our incoming or our freshmen play. If you look at UCLA, and you know, one player that I did vote for all conference at a very high mark is Bryce Alford. You know, when you think about the season he had, the career he had, if you can break the all-time three-point mark at UCLA, you're one heck of a basketball player. And I think that in some ways, because he's Steve's son, he doesn't get enough credit for the great career, the great team that he's on. And one of the reasons UCLA is such a great team is it is a very difficult matchup to guard him. He's experienced, he's smart, he's one of the great shooters that maybe has ever played in the Pac-12 or in college basketball. When you just look at his percentage plus attempts, he makes almost 4 threes a game in the mid-40s percentage-wise. So you could credit Lonzo Ball, and I know he plays the great cast, but he has had a great season. So using him as an example, or somebody like a Dylan Brooks or Jordan Bell, they were on those teams a year ago. It's the experience in addition to the incoming talent that we all need. And I think everybody, maybe other than a Kentucky, really depends on that.
So can I ask you who your player of the year was?
I can't, because if I don't name one of the 4 that could have made it, they're gonna have one of those games that I've watched with my own 2 eyes. So I'm not going down that path.
Well, what about Alonzo? Do you guys, when you guys vote, do you vote based on pretty much the conference season, in which case he's played most of the games, or do you look at the whole season and could that hurt him that he didn't play now?
Yeah, I mean, I can't vote for our own players, so that's gonna come down to the opposing coaches. But you know, he's had a big impact on our team's success, so I could certainly see where an opposing coach would look at him. And in some cases, you know, he's played against, I think, a number of teams twice, right? UCLA played against twice. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thanks.